Hello friends, it's Christy Marcotte. In today's video, I'll be using Paper Rose Studios Violet Garden 6x6 paper collection and also the coordinating die cut pack. And I did pick up 2 of the die cut packs so I could make multiples of the same card. I will be using some card sketches for inspiration. For card number 1, the card sketch is from Cards TV. This is sketch number 30. And if you are interested in any of the sketches I use in this video, I do share all of that information on my coordinating blog post. The link is provided in the description box below, or you can simply head over to christymarcotte.com. For the background of the card, I'm using this beautiful green watercolor looking design. I layered it on some purple cardstock and also some green cardstock. Then I'll put my card front onto a card base. All of my cards in this video are American Standard A2 size, 4 1/4 inches by 5.5 inches. For the narrow strip that goes across the card, I selected this lovely purple watercolor design. Then I'll add a 2-inch panel of this beautiful paper that has lots of different floral images. And I layered that piece on some purple cardstock. Before adhering it in place, I did add some scrap pattern paper pieces above and below where it goes over that narrow purple strip, just to keep it nice and level. Next, I'll add one of the die cut images, this package with a couple of plants coming out the side. There's a blank tag on the package, perfect for adding a sentiment. I'm using Paper Rose's Super Day Sentiment Set. The sentiment is just for you, but I masked off the word just, otherwise it wouldn't fit on the tag. I put some foam dimension on the back of the die cut piece, and I'll adhere it on the left side of the card. The card sketch I'm using does have measurements included for an A2 size card, but I'm modifying the measurements, and I do that quite often when I'm using card sketches. I'll also add one of the heart images in the lower right hand corner. I did put foam dimension on just the right side of the heart, and I'll put glue on the left side of the heart where it's touching the package. Using the same purple cardstock, I'll cut a small banner and add it in the upper left-hand corner. Then for a final finishing touch, I'll add some of the clear crystal mix from Paper Rose. Put 2 on the banner and 3 around the die cut images. There's a variety of sizes of crystals in the mix. I'm using the 2 smallest sizes. And I have an embellishment wand to pick those up, adding just a small drop of Bearly Art glue and pressing them in place. And I do want to point out that crystals don't come in this plastic container. I just like to use those for my small embellishments. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. For card design number 2, I'm using the pattern paper that has a large circle wreath. I don't make full 6x6 size cards, so I did trim down that piece to 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. Then I'll layer it on some dark purple cardstock, put some ATG tape on the back, and add my card front onto a card base. I get a lot of questions about what cardstock brands and colors I'm using, and I did remember to write it down this time. So if you head over to my blog, I have all of those colors and brands listed. Next, I'll add a narrow strip of the purple watercolor pattern paper on the left side of the card, and also a narrow strip of some purple pearlescent cardstock. And I did put some double-sided tape on the back of that cardstock piece. In the lower right-hand corner, there's already a birdhouse image, but I decided to add the larger birdhouse image from one of the die cut pieces. And I did pop it up using some foam dimension. I'll also add a couple more of the die cut floral pieces on the right side. And I did trim off the bottom portion of the stem since I am tucking it behind that birdhouse piece. For a sentiment, I'll be adding "Wishing you a wonderful birthday." This is a cut apart from Paper Rose's All Occasions sentiment sheets. And I cut that sentiment into 3 different pieces. That way it'll fit on the card. The full sentiment strip is too wide. I'll put some thin black foam dimension on the back of each of those sentiment pieces. Then adhere them above the birdhouse. And I'm adhering this sentiment wonky at an angle, just for some extra interest. Paper Rose sells several different sentiment sheets. I love using them. They're great if you don't feel like doing any stamping, and there's a ton of sentiments included in each pack. I've been using this pack for a couple years now, and I still have a ton left over. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. For card design number 3, the card sketch is from MFT. This is number 328. I selected 2 pattern papers, beautiful floral paper for the background, and I have some more of the purple watercolor paper for that smaller rectangle, and I'll be adding an image and sentiment there. I'll layer the background on some light green cardstock and then again on some purple cardstock. For the diagonal strip going across the card, decided just to go with some solid purple cardstock. I did cut that strip wider than the card, makes it easier to adhere down. Put some ATG tape on the back, adhere it in place, then I'll flip over my card panel, use my scissors, and cut off the extra. Next, I'll put my card front onto a card base, leaving 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. Before adhering the smaller rectangle piece down, I will put some scrap cardstock on the upper and lower area where it goes over that diagonal strip, and that'll help keep everything nice and level. For an image, I selected this beautiful watering can full of flowers. I'll put glue on the back and adhere it onto the purple watercolor pattern paper. For a sentiment, I'm adding "Thanks a bunch." On the right side, I cut it at an angle, following the design of the card sketch. And I'll adhere the sentiment on the lower portion of the watering can. Then for a final finishing touch, I'll add a small banner in the upper left-hand corner, and I use the same purple colored cardstock. Sometimes I'll use a banner die to cut those out, but most of the time I simply cut the banners by hand. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. For card design number 4, the card sketch is from Cards TV. This is sketch number 42. For this card, I selected the pattern paper that has this beautiful floral pattern on the top and bottom. Because it is a full 6x6 size, it won't fit on a card, so I cut that piece down. The 2 larger pieces are 2 inches wide. Then I cut out a 3/4 inch strip for the very center. So I'm still using 1 piece of pattern paper. I just trimmed it down so it fit on an A2 size card. I layered all of it on some dark purple cardstock, put my card front onto a card base. Next, I'll add a stitched oval die cut on the left side of the card, and it does have a pearlescent finish. I'll adhere it in place using some glue. I selected a beautiful die cut image. We have some plant in a purple bucket, and I'll adhere that down using some glue. For a sentiment, I'm using another cut apart, this time hello, and I'll adhere that to the right of the image, tucking the very left side of the sentiment underneath the oval. For a final finishing touch, I'm adding 3 small circle die cuts, and I use the same purple cardstock. And I forgot to show it in the video, but the 3 small circles are from Paper Rose's butterfly cover plate. Perfect size for embellishments. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. For card design number 5, the card sketch is from Cards TV. This is sketch number 40. For the very background of the card, I'm using more of the purple pearlescent cardstock. Then I'm adding this lovely pattern paper with lots of purple and pink branches. For the strip on the left side of the card, I'm using more of the purple watercolor pattern paper. And for that very narrow strip, I'm using some dark purple cardstock. Before adhering those pieces down, I did put some scrap pattern paper on the very top and bottom. I added the watercolor pattern paper piece down first, then I'll put glue on the back of that narrow purple cardstock piece. And I had a little bit hanging off the end, so I flipped over that panel, used my scissors to trim it off. Then I'll layer the background piece on the dark purple cardstock, add my card front onto a card base. For this card, I am following the card sketch fairly closely. For a sentiment, I'll be using another cut apart. This is Thanks a Bunch. And I'll also be adding 2 of the heart die cut images. I'll glue the hearts down first using some glue. And before adding the sentiment, I'll put just a small scrap piece of pattern paper in the very center. That way there won't be a noticeable dip on the front of the card in the center of that sentiment. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. I decided not to add any embellishments. It's always nice to have some cards on hand that don't have any extra dimension. Makes it easier to mail without paying additional postage. For card design number 6, the card sketch is from Cards TV. This is card sketch number 33. I thought this sketch would be perfect for using up some of the leftover pattern paper strips. I selected the purple and green watercolor designs and also a little bit of floral paper for the very center. I'll add all 3 of those strips to some white shimmer cardstock. For the narrow strip that goes across the card, it's kind of hard to see, but it is pattern paper. It's a very light off-white design that has a linen texture look to it. I'll layer that piece on some purple cardstock, add my card front onto a card base. I'll be adding one of the larger die cut images, another beautiful watering can with some plants. I'll first adhere it onto a vellum piece, and I did use a pierced rectangle die to cut that out. I'll attach the die cut piece down first, then I'll flip over that vellum rectangle, add adhesive just on the back side where that die cut piece is. That way the adhesive won't show through on the vellum. Then I can adhere that to the center of the card. For sentiment, I'm using another cut apart, this time thanks, and I'll cut the right side at an angle. For a final finishing touch, I'll add a couple of banners in the upper left-hand corner. I cut a narrow strip from the same purple cardstock and a wider piece from some green cardstock. Cut a fishtail on the bottom of each of those. Adhere the purple banner down first, then I'll add a scrap piece of cardstock to the right side before adhering the green banner on top. Adding a banner or 2 is an easy way to finish off a card. And again, I decided not to add any embellishments. So there is my finished card, and this time I made a total of 4 using this design. 2 of the cards are very similar using the same die cut image. The other 2 cards I changed up just slightly. I put the banners on the right side, and for one of the cards, the floral piece in the center is slightly smaller since that's all I had left. I simply cut a wider piece of the purple and green watercolor paper. Now moving on to card design number 7, and this is my final card design. For the background of the card, I'm using Paper Rose's Hand Stitching number 2 embossing folder. I embossed a piece of craft cardstock. At the bottom of the card, I'm adding a 1-inch strip of pattern paper. It's a light beige and it has a linen texture look to it. Put some ATG tape on the back and add my card front onto a card base. This is a very simple card design. I really wanted to use up more of the beautiful die cut images. I selected 3 of the plant images in glass vases, and I'll adhere all of those down using some glue, starting with the tallest on the left side, medium size in the center, and the smaller vase on the very right side, and it does have a little tag with a heart on it. Then I'll add one of the larger tag die cut pieces on the very left side and one of the heart die cut images. For a sentiment, this is bestest wishes to you. I'll cut the left side at an angle and adhere that in the upper right hand corner. So there is my finished card, and this time I made a total of 6 cards using this design. The 2 cards are horizontal and the other 4 are all vertical. I used the same embossing folder for the background, added a 1-inch strip of pattern paper toward the bottom of the card, used some different die cut images, and added a cut apart sentiment. With all the beautiful die cut images, I really didn't want them to go to waste. Now here's another look at the 20 cards I made using Paper Rose Studios Violet Garden collection. I used the 6x6 paper collection and also 2 of the coordinating die cut packs. This collection is also available in the 12x12 size. This is a beautiful collection. I love all the purples and greens. If you are interested in any of the products I used in this video, I do have links provided in the description box below. Paper Rose is located in Australia and they do ship their products internationally, but you can also purchase their products here in the US. And I have links for both locations in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.